Welcome to Level Up Conversations, where we take conversations to the next level. I'm your host, Shane Simmons, and today's conversation is going to be about why are there no other great superhero games? And we'll get into that in a little bit, but right now I want to introduce our guest, Louie.
Hi.
Louie, 30 seconds or less, tell me a little bit about yourself.
30 seconds or less, Louie, to be honest, is a Disney-loving zombie freak who likes to stay active and outdoors.
Still time on the clock, Louie, go.
You said 30 seconds or less.
Oh, that's true, I guess. You win. All right. We'll stop there.
Okay.
Look at you, setting a new record for the intro.
Hey.
The bar has been set. All right, so Louie, why have there been no other great superhero games if we remove the Arkham series? Because Arkham City, Arkham Origins to come out very soon, which is kind of what got my mind on this topic. Those were great games. Like, no one can argue that. Their Metascore is huge. They're great video games. Why hasn't that been duplicated? And just for the people at home, the reason I brought you here is because I've never met anyone that knows as much about comic book characters as you do.
I'm sure you have, but in my opinion, a lot of what has to do with not being a great comic book video game is the fact that a lot of the comic book video games that are out there now have been tied to a release of either a movie, a TV show, or some sort of event, and it's based off of a character or a movie or a story that's already out. When that happens, it's kind of like a free-for-all for the studios and the gaming community to just say, hey, there's something out, we can make a whole bunch of money real quick by releasing another part to our media campaign.
So they're not really looking to make a great game.
No, they weren't looking to. I think it's a cash cow.
They're just looking to, Spider-Man the movie is coming out. Let's make a game
exactly
off of Spider-Man the movie because you'll buy it because you went to go see the movie.
And I'm glad you brought up Spider-Man because with a Spider-Man game, it's focused primarily on the power of him being able to swing around. So instead of developing a story of a coming-of-age superhero, they're saying, you get to swing around a big city, so let's develop this expanded little town and see how far you can swing.
Okay. And I feel like a lot of people would agree with you that, like, my favorite part about the Spider-Man games, him being one of my favorite superheroes, is swinging around town. Like, when it's done well, which I feel like the only time it has been is in the Spider-Man, the movie, the games, is like the funnest part about the game is definitely swinging around, just feeling that motion of being able to swing from building to building. And I love that you touched on the storyline, because when we think about superheroes, for people that aren't a big fan of them, they just think that it's it's cool, oh, this guy's powerful and that's why we like them. But really that's not it. It's this person with all these inner turmoils, fighting with that, and then seeing how this plays out in all these different situations. I feel like it's one of the big reasons why comic books have so many villains to them. Yeah. It's because now how does this guy fight with this person who used to be their friend and now is their enemy, but they're really only enemies because of this. And you don't really dive into story that much. You just match what the movie is.
Okay, so Spider-Man, the movie, the game.
Yeah.
So the game, an average game is over 10 hours of gameplay, right?
Yeah, on average, a storyline game, I would say that's
you're basing that off of a 2-hour movie.
Uh-huh.
So what happens with that rest of the 8 hours?
They throw in this crummy filler of, and Rhino's in the game too, and there's also Scorpion.
But were they in the movie?
No, they weren't.
So what happens there? It's just kind of a hodgepodge of just junk that we're gonna fill this time slot with.
Right, because you just want to play with it, so let's give you the toys and let's throw it all together.
Exactly.
Steering away from Spider-Man a little bit, what about games that aren't based off of movies? Why haven't we seen more of those, especially with the huge success of Arkham? So why haven't there been superhero games that are great games that aren't based around the movie? Like, the ones that come to mind are the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, are the DC Universe Online, which is big MMO. I mean, it didn't do, I think, as well as they wished it would have. With it launching with the PS4, I feel like that'll help. But then there's also the Ultimate Alliance games, which are really great games, but they're nowhere near the level of other games. Like, as far as a superhero game goes, at their time, they were the best superhero game you could play. But it was because there was nothing else to compete with. When Arkham came out, when Arkham Asylum came out, you look back at those games and you were like, oh no, these were nowhere on this level.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think, apart from just like they've been based around movies, why haven't we seen, because we don't make games, but why haven't we seen a great superhero video game? What's probably the leading cause of that?
I think the leading cause of that is that the majority of the public, probably before the Batman Begins series, before Christopher Nolan took that and turned the idea of a superhero just upside down.
Mm.
I think superheroes in general and comic books were looked as childish things. They were things for kids. So no one really cared to really develop something for adults. When we're craving a good story, artful backgrounds in a video game, they wanted the cartoony feel, and we want to appeal to the 8 to 10-year-olds. They were going for that audience when, after Christopher Nolan released Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises, the idea of a superhero can be flawed. It was a little bit darker. There was more room to play with story, which leads up to Arkham Asylum and the Arkham series.
So you're saying up until that point, no one understood that they could make games for, just more than children based around video games that we would all enjoy.
Exactly. I think
I think that's a fair argument to make.
We need to realize that superheroes can be for adults too.
Okay. Before we get into the follow-up, just to touch on this point, would be when we think about like the different superhero games that we've seen in the past, and we think about where Arkham is, I feel like from a making a game point of view, it's really difficult to make a superhero game. Most RPGs or action-adventure games, when you play throughout the game, your character gets stronger. You get better, and it makes the game more fun, because there's that carrot at the end of the stick type aspect. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I feel like Batman could do it so well is they kind of did what Samus does, like the Metroid games, where, oh, you lost your suit of armor, and now you got to go pick up the pieces of it and unlock these new abilities. Or like Zelda, like you get these new weapons as you go through it. It felt very Zelda-y to me. I go to this dungeon, now I get this weapon that allows me to get through the dungeon. And that works for Batman, A, because he doesn't have any superpowers. Mm-hmm. And B, because of the fact that he has this huge array of weapons, and he has such a deep storyline to him. I feel like it's almost impossible to try and do that with, first of all, just about anyone from the Marvel Universe. Maybe Iron Man, you could do it, like upgrades to his suit or something. But just how do you get that progression feeling in a superhero game? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the only good superhero games after that point, it's just going to be an origin story. You're learning about your abilities. We can't stop the fact that we know that these powers that we love so much are slowly going to come to you, mm-hmm. but to explore just one area of, let's take it to Superman. Contrary to the shirt, I'm a huge Superman fan. And as much as I love Superman, I don't think there's really going to be a good Superman game, because he has all the powers, he has all the abilities, and you can't do much with that. So in order for there to be a good Superman game, it needs to be a discovering of those powers. You can't have all the powers all at once, but a level where you can't fly yet, and you got to get from mm-hmm. point A to point B.
Okay, I love that you brought up Superman, because what we've talked about a lot is I totally agree with you where there couldn't be a great Superman game unless, like what you just talked about. But from a player standpoint, I feel like that'd be very frustrating. Like, I know I can fly at super speed. I know I can use laser vision. I know I can, freeze stuff by breathing on it. I got my X-ray vision, mm-hmm. and you're making me jump from building to building. It would be frustrating, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why it hasn't happened yet in mm-hmm. a great way, is because it just can't work those kinks out.
It's got to be a good story to back up the reasons why you're jumping instead of flying.
There you go.
And I don't think we haven't had the desire to really put the time and effort into a Superman game to create that story yet.
Okay.
And I think we'll come to it when we realize that, again, superheroes can be for adults too.
I definitely feel like with the success of the Arkham series, everyone's going to kind of Well, the success of the Arkham series, the Marvel universe as far as the movies go, and then the DC universe as far as the movies and TV shows go.
Sure.
Follow-up question, you ready?
Ready as I will
You look
be.
ready.
Okay.
Follow-up question would be, if there was another superhero that you would make a game out of that you think would be the most successful, apart from Batman, who would that be?
I hate to sound cliche, but it's got to be Wolverine.
Wolverine? Okay. Because I was thinking about this, and especially with the Deadpool game coming out,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they both have the very strong healing factor.
Yep.
Deadpool, you can make it into a third-person shooter hack and slash, which they did. It feels a lot like games with Dante in them,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, Devil May Cry games are amazing, and that was a little bit of a feel that Deadpool had. Wolverine doesn't have the range, so you're always forced to be melee, and then you have other people shooting at you. You just kind of run through those bullets.
It could be a really good like hack and slash, but aside from
maybe like a God of War, like just a hack and slash like that. Would the progression be like as you level, you get more like combos that you can do, or how do you think they would handle the progression?
You can, he can learn new combos just from his progression in life. You know, he visits Japan and studies under the samurais, and all of a sudden he gets a new combo or whatnot.
Okay.
I think that would be great. You can explore. I think the reason I chose Wolverine is because there's so much. I mean, he's basically immortal. He's lived through everything, and you can take a story anywhere with him.
You could even do all the stories. Like you could play with him for like, 3 months here, and then jump forward like 20 years to be this part of Wolverine.
Yeah, maybe in the beginning he didn't have his adamantium skeleton, and he just had a healing factor, and that's all he had.
That'd definitely be a good place to start. When I was thinking about it, I want to say Thor because I love Thor so much, but really it'd be unlocking combos, which it's good, but I don't feel like you get that greatness aspect of it. I really feel like it'd have to be Iron Man, another person without superpowers, and he gets new upgrades to his suits. Now he has this, now he has that. Because you would be combining the Batman aspect of the progression system that makes sense. It doesn't feel forced by the game developer to the gamer. And the fun travel system that you get from Spider-Man. One of the biggest mods to Grand Theft Auto 4, or one of my favorite mods to Grand Theft Auto 4, is you play as Iron Man. And I just thought that was amazing. And it feels so good, and it feels right, and you can get into this character and deal with his internal turmoil of, destruction that he's caused because of his... You can kind of touch on what the first movie did, but make it your own origin story that maybe couldn't have been done from a movie standpoint.
I know this is a video game video, but Iron Man 3 did exactly that. It rose the question of, does the man make the suit, or does the suit make the man? And they took the suit away from him. And I thought that's why it made it...
What made that movie unique?
Yeah, it made it unique from the other two. Because you can only go so far from upgrading a suit.
Yeah.
At some point, you just have everything.
And I feel like at this point, from the public standpoint, we know Iron Man enough, we love him enough to be able to have a great game come out. Because I feel like it would fit perfectly with kind of like what Batman did. After Batman Begins, it was around the time of Dark Knight. I'm not sure if it was right before or right after. But I know it was around the time. I think it was before. Is when Arkham Origins came out, and then Arkham City just was like amazing because of how much we knew of Batman, how everyone knew how much we loved him, and how Rocksteady knew we can build off this success.
Okay. Yeah.
So, anything you'd like to add before we close it up?
Nope, nothing in particular.
Nothing?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Louie, for being on the show.
You got it.
You guys can follow us on Twitter. Be sure and comment on the video. Join the conversation. Let us know your thoughts, other ideas for the show, other conversations you've thought of. And definitely give us your input. We want to know what you have to say, because at the end of a couple of shows, we're going to try and do a recap show, which is just going to be talking about your guys' comments and insight. Thanks, Louie. You guys have a good night.